I'm making potato donuts today using our home canned potatoes. You can also do this with leftover mashed potatoes if you want. For that it would be somewhere around 2 cups of mashed potatoes. In our case, we're gonna start with 1 quart of canned potatoes. I've already drained it, and now I'm gonna take it over to my mixer and get those all mashed up. Now that the potatoes are nicely mashed, we're gonna go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients. And the first thing will be 1/4 of a cup of melted butter, 3 beaten eggs, a pinch of salt, 3 cups of sugar, and 1 cup of milk. I'll mix these together and be right back. Now we'll add 7 cups of flour, a pinch of nutmeg, which is equivalent to about 1/16 of a teaspoon, and 4 teaspoons of baking powder. Now I like to sprinkle this over the top to make sure that there doesn't end up being any clumps in any one area. If you want to, you can mix it in with the flour first, but this tends to work for me. And then we mix it one more time. Before we start making the actual donuts, I really like to make a little cinnamon sugar mixture, and I do that with 1 cup of sugar and 1 tablespoon of cinnamon. And then I mix those together. And that's what I'm gonna put on the top of our donuts when they come out. If you take a look at the dough, you realize that this is a really wet dough. And I've tried to make alterations to it to make it a little more manageable. Problem is, it changes the flavor. And it tastes so good that you don't want to change the flavor. So what you do is you just use lots of flour on the outside, but you don't want to mix it in. If you mix it in, then it just tastes like flour. It's not great that way, so trust me. I do a really nice dose of flour, and then I load up some dough right in the middle of it. Not too much, because I want it to be just what I can use for that little pile of flour. I don't want it to go outside of it. And then I get my hands nice and floured up, and I pat it down. You might have to do more because you need the surface workable, and the bottom needs to be nicely in that flour so that it'll come off, and then your donuts are ready to be cut. I like to use this old-fashioned biscuit cutter, but I've even used like mason jars, just use the top of them, or glasses. You just kind of flour the edge of those. Not a big deal. So I go through, I cut as many as I can, and then I'll come back around and I'll cut out the donut hole. Interestingly enough, the donut hole is actually so that it just doesn't get too doughy on the middle. Makes it so it cooks a little more evenly. The kids really like that part anyway, so I cook it too. You can really use anything to cut the hole out, but I have an apple core and I just use that. In fact, I usually like to use these little donut holes as my testers to see if my oil is hot enough. It seems like it's just about ready, so I'm going to test it out with those donut holes. And when you put them in, they should start to bubble up right away. I actually might need to turn it down just a little bit. Be careful, because the oil splashes back at you. They're starting to turn brown right away, which is why I thought that we should turn the temperature down a little bit. Okay, so that cooked really fast. Now, because these are small enough, it should be okay, and they shouldn't be doughy in the middle, but I think it was a good call to turn down that oil. So you put it in the oil, you make sure it gets nice and brown on the outside, but it also needs to be cooked well on the inside. Now, sometimes they get a little wonky on one edge, kind of like this one did. They're not always the perfect shaped donut, but I guarantee they taste good. Okay, now we don't want it to get much darker than that. So we'll put it in our cinnamon and sugar, coat it well. This is probably the kids' favorite part. And then take it out and put it on our tray. So be prepared. It does take a little while to fry up all of these donuts, but it is so worth it to have homemade, from scratch potato donuts for your family to enjoy.